Thanks for the generous introduction. I'm really delighted to be part of today's this event that got kickstarted this morning. Thanks to the Nepal Geotechnical Society, ourselves, the NDRRMA, where I have been serving as the CEO for the last 5 years nearly. Also thanks to BGC, who've also been part of this event. So, how much time would I have? Okay. So, thanks, Netra sir, for again walking us through a comprehensive presentation that tells us again the challenges and the risks faced by the Himalayas and particularly Nepal. What I'd like to submit you here to this gathering of some of the best of minds is that never before has the importance of again a geohazard assessment has been so important than the present day today. I could share our collective experience that we went through just within this monsoon season. If you just look into this year's disasters, it tells us a telling story on what are the challenges that we all are facing, but also it also outlines areas of again how we could collectively contribute in understanding risks, addressing them, looking at the challenges, and how we could chart our future together. So, just walking through again 3 signature events that happened that we experienced collectively this year. Starting with the Kanchanpur rainfall that you might have come across, where in the first time in our history, ever since we started measuring rainfall, we've received the highest amount of rainfall ever recorded in Nepal Himalaya, 624 liters in one night. So 624 millimeters. Imagine that falling in any mountain slope and what it could lead to. Those diagrams were a telling story where water creates all those, lowers the shear stress, and then it leads to disasters. Fortunately, this was not in the mountains or in the mid hills. This happened to be in the plains, the foothills of Nepal Himalaya. Nearly 2.5 billion Nepali rupees worth of damage, and it's mostly around river systems, especially our irrigation structures have been damaged. Lengths and lengths of irrigation canals, headworks, including embankments, have failed. The scouring of, again, some sections of the rivers are really frightening. On the other hand, I've noticed massive amount of sediment deposition in these areas. We've seen loss of damage of schools, hospitals, health facilities, public office buildings, but more importantly, a lot of agricultural lands and houses. The reconstruction needs are really challenging. So that's the first story again that we've experienced. We've done a preliminary damage and loss assessment for this report. We also have hard evidence from the Hydromet Office, DHM, the Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, saying that no, this is not a flaw in our measuring instruments. We've also validated with satellite-based observations. We've also looked at again nearby other hydromet stations to really corroborate and tell us that this was evidence. This is not a flaw within an instrumentation flaw or something else. So this is really again told us that such cloudbursts within Nepal Himalaya could occur more frequently. We could then go back to again the 1993 floods for a reference, where we've received again not as high, but something as high as 590 millimeters overnight. You might have recalled the damage to the Kulikhani reservoir. We'd lost the entire dead storage in one overnight. The whole dead storage for sediment capturing was thought to last for nearly 50 years. This was designed by the Japanese. Ek raat ma, 24 घंटा में entire sediment dead storage filled by. We again asked the Japanese to come back and review if the sediment dredging is a possible option. They did come back and spent nearly 1 year. They said sediment dredging is not an option. So we've lost the dead storage. Understanding sedimentation, especially in light to such events, such cloudbursts and such events, is really important for this August gathering out here. My submission to this crowd, to this August gathering, is that we've only learned how to measure water. This is a submission that I've also made in my deliberations in Baku and also during the recently held National Council meeting for disaster risk management led by our Right Honorable Prime Minister, which was attended by all our ministers, including our provincial chief ministers. We don't yet have an institution with mandate to monitor sedimentation and debris flow. Much of these problems that we've witnessed is around again, starting up a foundation as how do you quantify measuring of sedimentation, sediment flow of either with suspended load or bed load sedimentation. This takes me again back to this question of again what we've experienced 2021, the Melamchi fiasco. I call it a fiasco, it's more than a disaster. We've seen how miserably we failed in terms of addressing, understanding the risk in such mountain systems, and in particularly safeguarding our investments around multiple infrastructures, particularly the headworks in those areas. This was clearly an attribute of climate-induced impact, because if you go back up into those areas, you would hardly find any humans. There's no single trees being cut into those areas. There's a myth that, again, these landslides are because of cutting down of the trees. You don't find a single tree being cut in those areas. There's no anthropogenic activities in those areas. There's no roads being cut through. But despite that, we've seen one of those largest pulse load of sedimentation in one tiny slope. I've even stopped using the quantity, the unit of measurement as cubic meters, because our politicians, our decision makers don't understand cubic meters. I've been telling them 15 lakh truck load sediments. So 15 lakh, 1.5 million truck loads of sedimentation is hanging like a dagger. So how do you now really reconceptualize structures in those kind of high risk environments? Would a regular, a high cost dam is an option? Perhaps not. We've seen similar failures. One such example that I'd like to cite is the Hatisone Barrage in Butwal. Some of you all might notice it. It was a kind of a deltic fan. This was right smack on the bottom of the foothills. We've not understood how rivers behave, how sediment behaves in this kind of situation. A recently constructed bridge was wiped out overnight, even before it was inaugurated. So we've not really, again, understood our mountains, our Himalayas, and our foothills. That's the submission that I want to first come out with this, and especially in light to these three events, particularly Kanchanpur, the Hatisone Barrage, and the Melamchi case story. What we need to do is, as geotechnical engineers, some of the finest scientists that I see here in this room, is the need to establish a foundation whereby we have clear mandates to measure not only water, but also sedimentation and debris flow. This is going to be worsened by climate change every year that we need to see it. So this was in reference to the first ever signature event, unprecedented ever since last 77 years that we've experienced this one, and then what it will lead to. The second event that I want to again bring your attention is the Thame Glove. Right? And so this is not even a lake to our understanding. Glacial lake outburst flood is what is called. But again, if you really look into again the assessments recently done ones were back in 2000, led by UNDP with support from again ICIMOR. It didn't even consider these talaya, tal pani hoina, talaya bhanchu मैले चाहिँ talaya re Santino lake. त्यो lake चाहिँ हामीहरुको risk assessment मा हिसाब किताबमै पर्दैन थियो. We didn't even count them. Anything of a size less than 2.4 times an average swimming pool. So Olympic size swimming pool, हामी 7 बाटो swimming pool को भन्दा त्यो भन्दा 2.4 times भन्दा ठुलो भयो भने you would then consider as to be fit for assessment. It's flawed. It's only driven by hazard. It's only driven by the size of lake. Yeah. On the contrary, what happened was a सानो Olympic size swimming pool जत्रो तलैयाले त्यत्रो विभत्स क्षति लिएर आयो, ओखलढुङ्गासम्म लिएर आयो. What happened is, in the middle of a day, it burst out, this lake was burst out. There's a lake cascading upstream of it. There must have been some activity up there, perhaps a selving of it, what actually led to it. We have our colleagues who visited there. Baldeepji, he's one of the finest geologists working, but also a civil engineer working within our team. He, along with our colleagues from Hydromet office, but also experts, did visit the area. Now, very recently on November 28, another team led by our Joint Secretary Arjun sir, he's also here, right here in the corner. We and his team are going to lead, again, jointly with ADB colleagues and colleagues hired from ADB, but also ECMOD and others are going to visit Thame next week. And so it's basically part of an investigation, again, especially on 3 areas. A is, are those remaining 4 lakes safe? Number 2, is this area, Thame, fit for human habitation? These lakes might burst out. 3rd is, again, if it's not fit, again, we need to find out a place to relocate these families. So these are 3 clear tasks that have been assigned through a ministerial decision. The task team comprises of multiple ministries and expert departments. They'll be collectively with support from various international and national agencies will be working on this assessment to inform us on this process. Perhaps this is the first of its kind where Government of Nepal Authority is leading this work with support from various actors. Had it been in the middle of a day, perhaps we could have lost quite a dozen of families out there. The children got to see it. The lake was hardly 9.5 kilometers upstream of this area. It happened in the middle of the day. Had it been in the night, we could have lost people. But what's really worrying is we've not been able to really understand risk of such glacial lakes in this Himalaya system, just because we've had a very narrow perspective of looking at only the hazard side of things. We didn't look into the exposure assets. What is at risk? I mean, Jameen Mato matra herna siksau. My submission to it is, again, let's link it with the asset exposure. Yadi त्यहाँ टन्न धेरै मान्छे छन्, that's human vulnerability. बुढाबुढी छन्, हैन, डिसेबिलिटी भएको मान्छे छन्, महिलाहरू मात्र छन्, पुरुषहरू सबै मिडल इस्ट, युएस, न्यू जर्सीमा छन् त्यहाँको भने, that's more risk. When I went up there, this was something around 4,200 meters. I had used perhaps the same jacket. It was kind of, again, steaming hot. You could easily corroborate with, again, extreme temperatures that led to the melting of this glacier system up there, but also permafrost in this area, which is hardly discussed about. We've not really understood permafrost as well. This is also an area where you all could massively contribute on this area. So a combined effect of, again, the melting of the glaciers, the failure of the dams, perhaps selving or the calving of these selves, that led to the splashing of water overflowing into the subsequent lake that led into its bursting of it. A massive flow wiped out the entire community, hydropower, schools, health facilities, but also in its due course, again, wiped out a major bridge, something around 8 crores of rupees, and quite a number of settlements that's still downstream. The river regime is yet to stabilize. And so it's also kind of led to a massive amount of sedimentation in these areas. So what takeaway can we take out from this second signature event that we just faced this year was, again, we need to really come back to a drawing board in terms of, again, really how do we do risk assessments. It's flawed in terms of only looking at the hazard side of things. We need to really understand risk, price terms, human terms, looking at vulnerability, but looking also at, again, climate change scenarios. We really failed, I must admit that, to attribute this using a climate change science, perhaps reaching out to an independent body. I'm going to come back to that later, what we did, especially in the case of September 28 floods. So we failed to really attribute it to a climate-induced event as such, so perhaps that might not even fall into the realms of, again, calling it a climate-induced disaster because we didn't trigger it right when the incident was happening. It's really opened up our eyes to really revisit our ways of doing risk assessments in the Nepal Himalaya. What's also worrying is that none of this risk information assessment have been put into a national repository where you all could easily access it. सजिलै पाउन सक्ने गरी कुनै पनि हाम्रो नेपाली सरकारी डाटा प्रणालीमा यो डेटाको अहिलेसम्म भएका चिजहरूको त्यसको सजिलै पाउने सेभ फाइल्स, एकाडेमिक इन्स्टिट्युसन्सहरू होस्, रिसर्चर्सहरू होस्, यो चिजहरूले सजिलै पाउन सक्ने प्रणाली छैन। कहाँ छ डेटा? गभर्मेन्ट सिस्टम्सहरूको भन्दा बाहिर छ। As a Nepali, as international agencies, we need to devise a system whereby we have all this data on a time series basis into a national data repository system which is open source, sajilai pauna sakine कुरा हैन. NDRRMA has started this process since its inception. The whole idea is, again, these data and these needs to be contributed so that our academicians, our researchers, our consulting firms, our hydropower agencies, our settlers, planners, पालिकाजहरूले सजिलैसँग फोन 1 रुपैयाँको मोबाइलको फोन पनि खर्च नगरिकन आफै डाउनलोड गर्न सक्ने गरी प्रणालीमा हुनुपर्छ. A national repository हुनुपर्छ. Now I could take the same analogy down to every logs. ड्रिलिङको सजिलोसँग बुझ्नुहुन्छ हैन. त्यो डेटाहरू प्राइभेट कन्सल्टिङ फर्ममा छ, तपाईहरुको इन्डिभिजुअल हार्ड ड्राइभमा छ. जबसम्म त्यो नेसनल रिपोजिटरी बन्दैन तबसम्म यो चीजको कसरी ट्राभर्स भइरहेछ, हाउ द होल रिस्क इज इभल्भिङ, हैन, त्यो इन्फर्मेसन चाहिँ हाम्रो नेसनल निधि हो. We've not thought about this. I want to request this audience to really make a change in the process in these contributions, how we could really contribute to this data process. And like server, data systems, or platform, portal ले बनाएको छ. हरेक पालिकाले लगिन पासवर्ड हाल्न सकिन्छ, हरेक डिपार्टमेन्ट अफ माइन्स एन्ड जियोलजीबाट हाल्न सकिन्छ, अरू कुनै उपायहरू पनि क्रिएटिभ पनि हुन सकिन्छ. जबसम्म हामीले यो डेटा सिस्टम्सको नेसनल रिपोजिटरी हुँदैन तबसम्म हामीले त्यो साइन्टिफिक एभिडेन्स ग्यादर गर्न सक्दैनौँ, लस एन्ड ड्यामेजमा क्लेम गर्न सक्दैनौँ, के भइरहेछ भन्ने कुराको साइन्टिफिकली त्यो भ्यालिडेटेड क्लेम निकाल्न सक्दैनौँ. आई थिङ्क दिस इज द एरिया द्याट आई वान्ट to put into this gathering. Third event, and the most damaging one, was the September 28-29 floods. Again, an unprecedented. 55 years, for the last 55 years, we've not experienced such a high extreme rainfall event. We've seen what had happened. 37 people in Kathmandu Valley alone, capital district, the capital valley district. If you just look at the number of deaths, 268 to be exact. 250 we lost, 250. Another 18 still missing. हामीले 10% नभइकन उहाँहरूलाई डेड भनेर हामीले घोषणा गर्न मिल्दैन हैन. उहाँहरूलाई राहत चाहिँ मृतक सरह भनेर हामीले 2 लाख रुपैयाँ दिन्छौँ. So 268 जना right in the smack of again the capital district, despite us knowing that this event is likely to occur. We didn't know the confidence level as how bad it would impact, but we've come up jointly with DHM. We had a command post meeting. We came out with a massive campaign, especially risk communications, telling that धान काटेको छैन भने नकाट, धान काटेको छ भने भित्र्याउ, travel ban गर राति हैन. प्राधिकरण as प्राधिकरण we only have that limitations to tell that. हामीले त्यति गर्दा गर्दै पनि we've not been able to save these 268 lives. I could still see that's a massive success too compared to 1993 July 23 को floods, where 590-591 मिलिमिटर रातभरि पर्दाखेरि हामीले 1200 चान्चुङ हामीले लाइफ्स गुमायौँ. हेटौडा, मकवानपुरको अपस्ट्रिम एरियाज, सर्लाही र रौतहटमा हैन. सबभन्दा फ्लडको एउटै डिजास्टर सबभन्दा धेरै मानवीय क्षति भएको रिसेन्ट हिस्ट्रीमा 1993 फ्लड हो. हाम्रो बेलको लगायतका थुप्रै 6वटा त त्यतिखेर पुलहरू गए हैन. त्यस पछाडि again 21 years after, we've lost 44 bridges just in these 2 days of floods and landslides. 44वटा पुल. Count the amount of again numbers, the zeros. More than $300 million worth of damage. Yo monsoon ma matra हामीले we've lost 77 plus bridges. For the size of economies, for the size of again our GDP, we can't afford it. Ministry of Finance, Sachiju budget साथीहरूले, they are going through sleepless nights. ऋण लिनु बाहेक अरू कुनै उपाय छैन. So from what we've learned from this is it's such a given एकदम extreme event in the sense of where now if you really think of extrapolating your 690 millimeters, 690 millimeters of rainfall, now imagine that happening in Kathmandu Valley, the same areas, what would happen? Have happened? 268 जना गुमायौँ, 44वटा पुल भएको, त्यसको डबल द अमाउन्ट 331 देखि 361 मिलिमिटर पानी परेको हामीले डिएचएमले रेकर्ड गर्यो. त्यो डबल गरिदिनु भयो के हुन्थ्यो होला? लाइक लेट्स लुक फर इट. आर वी प्रिपेयर्ड? No. Our structures, our bridges, roads designed to meet these events that are going to be a new normal. अब यो चिज फटाफट आइरहन्छ हैन, फटाफट फ्रिक्वेन्ट हुन्छ. क्लाइमेट चेन्जले यसलाई उथलपुथल गर्छ. we, for the first time, reached out to World Weather Attribution to tell us, validate us, whether it's attributable to climate change. There's a special protocol that needs to be followed. It has to be triggered while the disaster is happening. We need to tell them on a near real-time basis that यो losses भयो, यति पानी परिरहेको छ, यो रेस्पोन्सहरू गरिरहेको छ, यो पुल अहिले गयो, अहिले भरे यो गयो. Immediate situation reports बनाउनुपर्छ. We for the first time came up with 4 situation reports. Our colleagues are also here. Smith and Z and the teams were really working hard. One of the reasons why we're churning out those situation reports, world-class English language presentations, and we are sending them overnight, nearly on a 24/7 basis. They used it, had this facility out of Imperial College London. If we just claim out that okay, this is because of climate change, and so there's a special protocol that actually would then attribute it. They've come back, they've done it, and then they've also done a peer review with Nepali experts who voted for this purpose. So something around like 30 people who worked on it, and then they come up with an embargo report for some time. They validated it and they said that it's purely a case of climate change. 10% of the additional rainfall was because of this 1.3 degrees temperature rise, and so this is how we have the strong science evidence to tell that it's because of this extreme rainfall that's happened because of climate change. There are also other factors, and particularly haphazard urbanization, mal-urbanization को कारणले गर्दा पनि यो चाहिँ भएको हो भनेर त्यो रिपोर्टले भन्यो हैन. $300 million भन्दा बढीको क्षति, यत्रो मानवीय क्षति, 44 वटा पुल गयो, something around 21 hydropower stations, हैन. हामीले रोसी खोला हेर्न जाम अथवा just look at again, Nepal sir was again describing about the highways. I think we've completely again failed how to do business. I think this is what we could learn from there. Again, want to really trigger this discussion for the rest of these 3 days, that we should not mess around with our river systems. नदीलाई छेकेर, नदीलाई ड्याम बनाएर ताक गरेर, retaining wall लगाएर, some of the best of again the Japanese road हो नि हामीहरुको. हैन, जापानले बनाएको सब चीज धुन्दार हुन्छ. जापानिज रोड पनि के पनि हुँदैन, बज्र हुन्छ, अन्त उता हाम्रो मुनिको रोड खतम भयो. यो जापानिजको रोड यो सिन्धुलीको बाटो त के पनि हुँदैन. We messed with the river system. नदीको बाटो छेकेर सेडिमेन्टेसनलाई नबुझिकन, नदीको प्रणाली र हिमालय सिस्टमलाई नबुझिकन रोड बनायो भने के हुन्छ भन्ने कुराको क्लासिक एक्जाम्पल हैन. नदीको टालेको के थिएन, यिनीहरूले सरले देखाउनु भएको सबै रिब वाल थिएन कि रक बोल्डिङ थिएन कि त्यो साइडको बुझिँदैन, तर नदीलाई छेकेको थियो. नदीले स्काउट गरिहाल्दो रहेछ त्यत्रो सेडिमेन्ट आए पछाडि हैन. जस्ट लुक एट खुरकोटको ब्रिज हैन. खुरकोटको ब्रिज हाई फ्लड लेभल हुँदा त माथि राखेको थियो. त्यसको अहिलेको त्यो ट्रेसेस गरेर हेर्न गयो भने त्यो अहिलेको रोडको डेकबाट 1.5 ट्रक माथिसम्म त माथि फ्लो लेभल पुगेको थियो. कारण के, हामीले पानी त बुझ्यौँ, सेडिमेन्टेसन बुझेनौँ, डेब्री फ्लो नै बुझेनौँ हामीहरूले हैन. सो त्यो चिज बुझ्न, बेस्ट अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड गर्न, कन्ट्रिब्युट गर्न सक्ने समाज भनेको तपाईँहरू हो. सो the whole society line, request that we should collectively make a voice for having this issue. Hydropower and road. I mean, we think we should need to really change the paradigm as how we design roads. Nadi line, Nadi sir, I mean, Nadi Kathmandu is a classic example where we really impose rivers and say, we don't need you. We've seen it, we'll see perhaps in coming future. But the scope of again work is not only these big infrastructures done by government, large scale finances, World Bank, EDB, finances, hotels, resorts, private houses, design त्यो संरचनाहरु नै गयो हैन. कतिपय फोटोग्राफ्स तपाईले देख्नु पनि भयो होला, करोडौंको अरबौंको इन्भेस्टमेन्ट्सहरु छ हैन. त्यो चीजहरु जान थालिसकेको छ, and they really value again अब पीडा परिचय पछाडी भ्यालु गर्छ उनीहरुले, त्यो साइन्समा रिस्क एसेसमेन्टमा लगानी गर्छ उनीहरुले हैन. So that's an area that we could also collectively contribute it. So to sum up again, what I see is again Bluff Lake hosts अथवा अहिलेको landslides होस्, whole risk scape नै change भएको छ. To sum up, what I see is risk is so fast aggravating, माथि fast कुदिरहेछ, हामीले प्रयासहरूले त्यसलाई पक्रिन भ्याएको छैन. अनि Now, my worry is, again, your reconstruction program of oil we've got to embark on is going to be even more complex than the 2015 earthquake reconstruction program. The reason being, again, mainly around river scape, hazard scape नै चेन्ज भएको छ। 331 देखि 361 मिलिमिटर पानी पर्दाखेरि त्यो रिभरको बेड लेभल एग्रेडेसन भएर हैन अहिलेको सिचुएसनमा अन एभरेज 60 सेन्टिमिटर 1 मिटर 1.5 मिटर महाकान्तिर जाने 14 मिटर वनको इलाका कारणले 14 मिटर तल पुर्रिएको छ। त्यो पनि एकदम माथिको हिलको ठ्याप्प बेसमा होइन, अझ तल फ्लड प्लेनमा आइसके पछाडि भनेपछि त्यो सिचुएसनमा अब फेरि 300 चाहिँदैन, 150 मिलिमिटर पानीमै मेरो विचारमा चाहिँ यदि यू रियली डू अ बेसिक हेड क्लास modeling, you tell that this area is going to be perhaps doubly impacted by even by 150 or 200 millimeters of rainfall. You don't even need to wait at 331 or 361 millimeters of rainfall. Imagine again what would happen if 720 millimeters of rainfall or 624 millimeters of rainfall would happen, which is very likely actually. So your situation, man, I'm not trying to scare you here, but again, if you understand the real science behind it, if you look at the scenarios, you could perhaps better plan our infrastructures, our dams, our roads, our bridges, our settlements. So this is where you can tunnels also from a, you could also think it from a, not only from a hydrometeoric perspective, but also earthquakes. So this is where the need to really understand these processes, especially in the Himalayan situation, is so much important. And so that's why I want to again end by saying that again, never before in history or even right now, there's the need for again coming together to really work on the understanding of geohazard assessment, but also contributing that to the overall risk process. जहाँ चाहिँ मान्छेलाई केन्द्रबिन्दुमा राख्नुपर्छ, जहाँ चाहिँ एसेट एक्सपोजरलाई केन्द्रबिन्दुमा राख्नुपर्छ, क्लाइमेट चेन्जको सिनेरियोजलाई राखेर निकालिएको रिस्क इन्फर्मेसनलाई सर्वसाधारणले बुझ्ने गरी रिस्क कम्युनिकेट गर्न सक्यो भने बल्ल चेन्ज गराउन सकिन्छ। रिस्क कम्युनिकेट चाहिँ हामीलाई मात्र बुझ्ने हिसाबबाट होइन, टेक्निकल ल्याङ्ग्वेजको हामीलाई कोडेड गरेर हामीले मात्र बुझ्ने भाषामा गऱ्यौँ भने इट विल नट ब्रिङ चेन्ज। दिस हेज टु बी इफेक्टिभली कम्युनिकेटेड टु द लाइक्स अफ मिनिस्ट्री अफ फाइनेन्स, पालिका, वडा अध्यक्ष, डाउन टु एन एभरेज सिटिजन। विभिन्न भाषामा हामी त्यसलाई गर्न सक्यौँ भने सायद हामीले यो एकदम उथल पुथल जुन भइरहेको छ, नेचुरल प्रोसेस, अननेचुरल प्रोसेस एन्ड प्रोसेसबाट जुन भइरहेछ, त्यो हिसाबबाट हामीले राम्रोसँग समाजमा यो ज्ञान पुर्याउन सक्छौँ। र यसलाई चाहिँ हामीहरूले चिरिबाउ महर्जन मेयर साहबले भनेको कोटबाट म एन्ड गर्न चाहन्छु। हामीले त केही बुझेकै रहेनछौँ। बाढी पहिरो भनेको त राप्ती रौतहट बर्दियामा मात्र आउँछ होला, यहाँ त यत्रो कहाँ आउँछ होला। So if we think that in that terms, how do we kind of really communicate risk using all the foundation of geohazards, but also exposure, volunteer राखेर, strategy scenarios राखेर हामीले त्यसरी गर्न सक्यो भने we could definitely bring a change in terms of understanding our Himalayas, our systems, our infrastructures, and our stability. So with all these words again, thank you so much again for allowing me this opportunity.